everybody, today we're going to be going over the posterior aspect of the forearm muscles. Before we jump into the musculature here, I have a nice little diagram that I would like to show you all. The number of the day is 6, as there are 6 compartments of extensor compartments of the back of the forearm. Most of these are responsible for extending the wrist like this, or the fingers, which we'll go over. And so each compartment contains 1 or 2 muscles, and so you can see that here. Like for instance, compartment number 1 contains the extensor pollicis brevis and abductor pollicis longus. We'll see these muscles. We'll go through them compartment by compartment today, and it's a great way to memorize these back of the forearm muscles. I found another great picture here, and they color coded the compartments with the muscles, and so it's just a great way to see how each of them form each compartment, and is just for your reference. So we'll start going through our muscles here. Our first one on the list is the brachioradialis. This serves as the dividing part between the anterior and the posterior aspect of the forearm. And as you can see, it originates above, way up here on the supracondylar ridge of the humerus, wraps around, comes down, and attaches at the radial styloid process down here. And so it's responsible for keeping the elbow flexion, which is good, especially during a hammer curl, if you've ever done hammer curls with a dumbbell at the gym. And then also keeping the forearm in neutral. So from a pronated position with the palm down, you can supinate the forearm back to neutral. And then from a supinated position, when it contracts, it can pull it back to neutral as well. And so innervated by the radial nerve. And so it's very easily seen muscle and very important. All right, we can hide that one. So now we're going to start jumping into our compartments. And so we're not going to start with 1 through 6, as some of them are a little deeper and it's not easy in this program. So we'll go compartment by compartment. I'll put the compartment up in the corner so we know where we're at. Okay. So our first compartment is compartment number 2. Okay. And so compartment number 2 of the extension muscles contains extensor carpi radialis longus and brevis of the same muscle. So we'll go over those two. So here's our extensor carpi radialis longus attaching on the supracondylar ridge just below the brachioradialis, still above the condyle, and then coming on down to attach, crossing the wrist joint, and is responsible for extending the wrist as its main job, and then radial deviation of the wrist. Okay, we can hide this one, and then its brother right here, still compartment number 2, as this compartment 2 contains 2 muscles, extensor carpi radialis brevis, and this one actually attaches right on the lateral epicondyle of the humerus, coming on down, again, crossing the wrist joint, again, and then responsible for extending the wrist, radially deviating. Now, a common condition that is seen with this is called lateral epicondylitis, or lateral epicondylalgia, as we kind of like to say. Basically, the difference between itis meaning inflammation, algia meaning pain. But essentially, this is actually the most common muscle to be irritated with the condition, also known as tennis elbow, or lateral epicondylitis, which is treatable with physical therapy, which is really cool. Okay, this one is actually innervated by the posterior interosseous nerve, which is a continuation of the radial nerve right after it splits into the superficial branch, and the continuation is just the posterior interosseous nerve, which we can see a little bit later. So we'll hide this one. Our next one, we're going to move compartments now, is compartment number 4. So we're going to start, so we went from 2, now we're doing 4. So this is compartment number 4. This is the extensor digitorum. So this is the big muscle that extends the digits, or the fingers. And so it attaches, again, on the back aspect, almost near that lateral epicondyle of the humerus, and then sends 4 tendons, as we can see here. Sending 4 tendons down to fingers 2, 3, 4, and 5, and attaching and forming what we call the extensor hood. And the extensor hood is this entire mechanism along the back side of your finger that helps to extend all the joints. And long story short, it's a big connective wiring of multiple tendons. So the main one, though, is the extensor digitorum here, and it has a couple parts to it, and we can zoom in here to the hand to get a better visual, and we'll click just a tendon. Okay, so here we go. So here's the tendons again of the extensor digitorum, and you can see how the central band is what we call this right here, attaches to the base of the middle phalanx right here to extend this joint right here, which is the PIP, the proximal interphalangeal joint, like we talked about earlier. And then you can see here it sends 2 lateral bands off of that to form and converge on the middle to attach to the distal phalanx right here, and then responsible for extending the DIP, or the distal interphalangeal joint. So, interesting mechanism that is at play there. And extensor digitorum is also innervated by the posterior interosseous nerve. So we can go ahead and hide that one. Our next one on the list is still compartment number 4, and it's a smaller muscle originating way down, not near the condyle, but on the back of the radius and ulna and the interosseous membrane. And then this is called the extensor indices. And this sends a tendon, literally only 2 indices, Latin for index finger, so your pointer finger, and then attaching and inserting into that extensor hood again, and so it's mainly responsible for extending the pointer finger. Very cool muscle. Also innervated by the posterior interosseous nerve, and okay, so we can go ahead and hide that one. There we go. All right, moving on to compartment number 5, we have the extensor digiti minimi, meaning pinky finger. So this one, literally its entire job is to extend your pinky finger, which is really neat. And so again, it attaches all the way up here on the humerus, the lateral epicondyle aspect, and then it curls around to thin strap muscle, coming down to send a tendon to the back of the hand. Oops, sorry about that. There we go. To the back of the hand, and then to the back of the pinky, again inserting on the extensor hood of the finger, specifically finger number 5, your pinky finger, which is really neat. So we can go ahead and hide this one. And then we're going to jump to compartment number 6. And this one only contains one muscle, is the extensor carpi ulnaris. So extending the wrist on the ulnar side. So that's basically what that means. Attaching the lateral epicondyle, and then sending a tendon down to cross the wrist joint all the way over here to extend the wrist there. Innervated again by the posterior interosseous nerve. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hide this one. All right, so we have to go up a little bit. This is a deeper muscle, and this is a very important muscle. It's the supinator. And you can see it attaches on the back of the lateral epicondyle and the ulna, and then sends that muscle belly around, wraps around to the radius. And so when the muscle contracts, it spins and supinates your forearm, facing your palm up. And it does a really good job of that. Another really, really important thing about the supinator is its relationship with the nerve supply of this posterior compartment of the forearm. So mainly everything is innervated by the radial nerve, as can be seen right here. Here's our anconius. We can hide him. There we go. Here's our radial nerve. Like we said, it comes from the neck, back of the shoulder, goes down to the tricep, past the lateral epicondyle, and it actually goes into, and you can see it right here, course, and then right here it goes into the supinator, through it, out the other side, to form the deep branch of the radial nerve, also known as the posterior interosseous nerve. So we can, that one, and that hole through the supinator is called the arcade of Frosch. And it's a point of entrapment of the radial nerve, which can get irritated in some people. So we can hide the deep branch, and then we can hide the radial nerve here. And then there's also, let me hide this nerve here, is the lateral antebrachiocutaneous nerve. We'll go over that in another video. And then the reason that it's called the deep branch basically is because it branched, the radial nerve does branch into the superficial branch as well. So there is a superficial branch which is located right here. We can see it course from near this. It's very close to where the supinator arises. And this one does not have any motor aspect, but it innervates basically cutaneously, or skin innervates. So I can feel on the back of the forearm and the back of the hand, and you can kind of see that course around to the thumb, and also give off this branch, which is the digital branch. They call it the palmar digital, or the dorsal digital branch of the radial nerve, to innervate the skin of the back of the hand there. And we'll go over that in another video as well. So that's kind of the nerve supply of the entire posterior aspect that we need to know. Okay, so we can go ahead and hide the supinator. And our last couple muscles here are called the outcroppers, and so they kind of outcrop from here and then go towards the thumb. And so we're going back to compartment number 1. So we have compartment number 1 here. Contains the abductor pollicis longus and the extensor pollicis brevis. And these two are both in compartment number 1. It was a little confusing at first, but the motions of the thumb, so extension and flexion, happen in the frontal plane, this plane right here. So if I hold my thumb up, this is extension, this is flexion. And then abduction, adduction happens in the sagittal plane right here. So I'd have to turn my hand, anatomically speaking, but this right here, pulling it away, is abduction, and then pulling it towards is adduction. So just for reference. And so here is our abductor pollicis longus, starting on the back of the radius and ulna and the IO membrane, coming along, sending the tendon down that first compartment, and then attaching at the base right here, almost at the base of that first metacarpal here, and responsible for abduction right there of the thumb, innervated by the posterior interosseous nerve. Okay, and then our next one, also compartment number 1, extensor pollicis brevis. So this is extension now, so not this, but this. And this is the short one, so it attaches to the right here to the proximal phalanx, and does extension of the thumb, innervated by the posterior interosseous nerve. So compartment number 1 specifically is highly mobile as we move our thumb a lot, especially nowadays with scrolling on our phones, and it can get irritated and painful, and it's a condition called de Quervain's tenosynovitis, which is essentially where the tendons of the abductor pollicis longus and extensor pollicis brevis get irritated in that synovial sheath that it runs through in compartment, specifically compartment number 1. So it's a condition that can occur for irritation, which is best helped with rest and activity modification, and later strengthening exercise. So we can hide this one. And then our last compartment that we haven't talked about is compartment number 3, and it contains one muscle, and it is extensor pollicis longus. Again, extending the thumb, and this one is a longus, so it attaches all the way to the base of the distal phalanx of the thumb to extend the interphalangeal joint of the thumb, innervated by the posterior interosseous nerve. And we can hide that one here. And with that, we have covered every single muscle of the posterior aspect of the forearm. I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you all learned something. If you have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comments. I am the PT guy, educating you on God's wonderful creations. I'll see you in the next one.